Everybody. My name is Buffy Nelson. I'm the director of the New Mexico Art League. And a few weeks ago, we decided that it would be really fun for everybody during this stay-at-home time to take a little peek at our different faculty's studios. And today I will be bringing you to the studio of Alice Webb. Alice has been teaching for us for about a year now. We were super, super delighted that she decided to come and teach with us. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning.
So those are some pretty fabulous paintings behind you there. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Or how about we start with this? I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Can you tell me what was tell me a little bit about the path that led you to become an artist.
Okay. Well, that story. I've always been a creative, always, as far back as I can remember. My first memory of making visual art is when I was 5 years old. And I went on a trip to the South to one of these plantation houses, these reconstructed things where the ladies were in antebellum costumes, and it was all wonderful. And on the plane home, I drew some pictures, and I looked at my pictures of the antebellum ladies and their big skirts, and I thought, I'm pretty good. These are, I mean,
good inspiration.
Yeah, they weren't stick figures. I thought, they're not stick figures. I didn't think they're not stick figures, but they had more stuff to them than I noticed the other kids were. And I was always the kid in school who everybody said, will you draw this for me, or will you draw that?
The popular kid that can draw.
The kid to draw. I was the kid to go to if you wanted something drawn. So a lot of times though, I was writing poetry or listening to music and singing and writing stories. So it wasn't just visual art that I was doing. I was doing everything creative. That was my home. I think that, yes, when I got to junior high was a big turning point, because of course you couldn't, well, back then, if you were a girl, you had to take cooking. So I had to take cooking. I wasn't allowed to take art. And I had to beg to take art. And then after that, I was always in advanced art. But what was sad for me is that meant I couldn't take music, and I couldn't do some of the other creative things and today kids get to take more than one elective. I think it's really wonderful that it's understood that a lot of times when somebody is a creative, it goes over all the fields, it's not just limited. But that's what got me into visual art, was that I had to make a choice between music and visual art. And I chose visual art because I thought I'd be too scared to sing in front of somebody or to make music in front of somebody.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because now I laugh and think, now I'm doing interviews.
Not quite singing, but we might have you sing later.
No, I'm not going to sing. It's way gone.
Well, so it sounds like it was just part of your nature. You didn't even really have a choice. You're a I like the descriptive word creative. That's really terrific.
Yeah, and I was encouraged. I was very fortunate because I was encouraged in the arts.
By family, your parents and teachers.
By my teachers, by my mother.
Yeah.
Any material that I wanted, she would always buy for me.
That makes a big difference. It really does.
It really does.
Yeah.
I was very privileged in that way. And I was taken to museums. I grew up in the museum district of Fort Worth, Texas, where there's big oil money and there's lots of museums. And I actually babysat for the director of the Amon Carter Museum when I was a teenager. So
wow, there's a claim to fame.
Yeah, I mean, I had art was all around me, and I was taken to museums in Mexico and on the East Coast, and yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. Well, let's see. Tell me a little bit about your background and where you studied painting.
So originally I went to the University of Texas at Austin, but it was 1971, and the thing to do for crazy people and all the wild people in 1971 was to drop acid and drop out. So I did that, and I actually ended up in Taos in 73, in the winter of 73. Um, and I had fallen in love with a man from Taos that I met in Arlington, Texas, and I went out to visit and stayed a couple of months in the winter of 73, and then in the early spring of 74, I moved out to Taos, which was,
And you stayed in Taos for many years,
yeah,
right?
until
It became
1990.
home.
Until 1990, yeah, it was pivotal. I had thought that I wanted to go to New York or Chicago, that was where I was headed, because that would be big art scenes and things like that. But this man that I met convinced me to move to Taos. So I moved to Taos for love, and it couldn't have been more perfect. I think I would have, I don't think, knowing who I was at that time, I don't think I could have, that I had what it took to go to a place like New York or Chicago. I just was kind of all over the place. I mean, it was a really wild time. It was a wild time in my life. It was a wild time in our history.
Yeah.
And and so getting to Taos was perfect, because there was this wonderful hippie scene. Everybody was, we had goats and chickens and grew our food and grew marijuana and had just
We're going to have to edit that out.
wonderful, wonderful parties. But also, I mean, the big thing is people were making art.
Yeah.
People were really making art, and they were making a living off making art. And honestly, it's kind of funny, because when I moved to Taos, I was self-identified as a poet. And I was
Really?
writing poetry. I had been doing a lot of poetry, and I was writing poetry and getting in anthologies and even winning little $5 awards.
Nice.
But I looked around and I was like, wow, these artists, these visual artists are selling paintings. And so it was, I just started really focusing more on the visual arts. It seemed to be, it was, what do you
It was a
call it?
very supportive community then.
Yeah, it was
An
a,
open
it
community,
was
which
an
is,
open community. It
which
was a
is really
supportive
important for the
community.
arts. Yeah.
I was doing some modeling. I was a nude model at the University of Arlington in Texas, and so I continued to do nude modeling for artists in Taos. And I remember I was modeling for Susan Kulbaki, who was a well-known artist in Taos at that time, and laying on all this drapery nude with satin and lace and everything. And she would paint me and put different faces on me so that she could use me as a model a lot. It was really funny. And I was watching her paint, and I thought, I can do that. I can paint. I know I can paint. And so I started I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do abstracts eventually, but I started by doing a lot of going to drawing sessions at the Harwood in Taos, and not at the Harwood,
Yeah, the Harwood Museum.
at the Stables.
Oh, Stables Gallery.
Stables,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and got to know artists. I would go out painting with not with Susan Kubaki, but with Lisi Frank and Barbara Zaring. And there was Teresa Swain. There was a whole lot of women, and we were going out painting. I met Fritz Scholder. He asked me to model for him, but I was like, I didn't do that actually. I thought his paintings were a little weird at the time. Now I have
Okay.
more appreciation, but at the time I thought it was a little kinky, so I wasn't sure. um, I did eventually take a class with Fritz Scholder towards the end of my time in Taos, which was really wonderful.
And you worked with a few other artists in a workshop setting or just in an individual setting?
In individual settings, we would get together, different artists. What I did was I ended up studying the Taos founders and reading different artists' handbooks. The Natural Way to Draw by Nicolaitis, and
Yeah.
we would follow different schedules.
So at this point, you're really sort of pursuing your own style and a little bit that you're self-taught at this point.
I am really a self-taught artist. When I moved down to Albuquerque, when I moved down here in 1990, I came back to the University of Texas, the University of New Mexico, to get my undergraduate, my BFA, and I actually had shown with a number of the professors at the university. I had shown in some university shows because I was a known Taos artist by that time and had been invited to show with them. They had started Bob Ellis. Robert
Bob. Bob is so wonderful.
Back in the early 80s, started that landscape painting workshop, and he invited Lisi Frank and myself to come and just be part of the group as Taos artists. And so I knew a lot of the artists, the professors, and had shown down here at the university, but now I was studying with them, which was sort of an interesting situation.
It's a big transition there. Yeah, almost from a peer to a student, which is tricky sometimes. Yeah. Right. Well, now tell me, you mentioned a few of these artists that meant a lot to you, in the community of Taos, but who in history, what artists in history are particularly influential to you?
You know, I thought a lot about that. First off, it's like the usual suspects. Matisse, one of my favorite ever artists. Actually, Picasso deferred to Matisse. There's a little story about somebody talking with Picasso and saying, "Oh, your art is so wonderful," and everything. And Picasso said yes, and then there's Matisse. And so I love Matisse. And I have to stop and looking at this list I made of artists, it's like they're all males. Because that's what
that's interesting, because I think of you as sort of a significant, you really have quite a significant spot as a New Mexico woman artist, I believe. And I don't ever mean to use that as a category, but I really see that your paintings fit into a spot in history somehow.
Right. Well, thank you. And I think that's a compliment.
Oh, it's meant to be a compliment, most definitely.
Yeah. So there was Matisse and Mark Rothko. When I was working at the university, I did an installation that was very minimalist. So I was very influenced by the minimalists during that time period. I was totally in abstraction at that point, not doing the landscapes anymore. And even though I brought the landscape with me, and I now, of course, do it.
Oh, it's most definitely still part of you. I think it's part of your heart in terms of, I think Taos is part of you now. And so, the fact that you still paint Taos Valley, which in fact, good point, Bob Ellis did too. Wherever he was living, he continued to paint the Taos Valley forever. I mean, it was just such an inspirational vista, or more than that.
Right.
Bigger than just your average landscape, that's for sure. But anyway, carry on, sorry.
But I think too, David Hockney, oh my gosh. What an incredible artist. I mean, he's in his 80s now. He must be getting close to 90. And still does these incredible paintings. He's amazing.
He is amazing. He has a very unique vision.
Right, right. Was very influenced during the 80s by Jim Dine. So these pop artists of the 60s really influenced me. Who I'm influenced by now, though, are, and this really speaks to how women have been left out of art history. So Agnes Pelton,
Yes, 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 yes.
in terms of my abstracts, I really relate to Agnes Pelton, and of course, she's only been discovered in the past decade. Whereas
That
she,
seems to be an odd trend, doesn't it? That
yeah,
only later in life do you get your notoriety, and
well, and
not
she's
everybody, but it
dead
seems
since
to
the
be
60s,
happening a lot.
you know. So, but she also was interesting because she was doing these spiritualist paintings, but she also was doing landscapes. So I
Right.
really connect with her. Hilma af Klint, um,
Yes.
another artist, this a spiritualist from the 19th century, lived into the 20th, but very much rooted in the 19th century. And then two, I have to show you this. I'll grab this. These artists, and this is a group. These are some artists that I saw in a show in San Antonio a number of years ago, and they just do. They're men and women. Jose Alvarez, Beatrice Milhouse, Hazens, and I'm just going to show you some of this stuff. It's like
Sure.
really amazing.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
gorgeous stuff. And it's the title of the book is Beauty Reigns, a Baroque Sensibility in Recent
nice.
Painting. So these are amazing artists. I actually have this book in my studio. So
Art book's great. They're irreplaceable.
I'm
You have to have a book to refer to and go back to. They're like your friends who are always there to inspire you or to remind you of what inspires you.
right, right. I always buy the book.
Yeah. The catalog, I know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
irresistible.
So so those are some of the artists that inspire me. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I love that. You mentioned being, let's see. Oh, I know. You mentioned being a part when you came to start teaching at the New Mexico Art League, which was only about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
That it sort of represented a new chapter in your life. So, what is it? How do you view that chapter? And maybe you can give us a little glimpse of what you see in the future for you as a painter.
Yeah. Well, you know, I retired from teaching for the public schools a year and a half ago, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I got right back into it, just burning to make paintings. And then I think what's happening now, I mean, it was like I had all this pent up energy to put into painting. And so I didn't question. I just started painting landscapes in my abstracts, and I did some still lifes when I did the still life class.
Right,
And,
right, which was a wonderful class. So you were just really excited about having time to paint for the first
yeah,
time in what, 20 years or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And then what happened is last fall, I kind of hit a wall. And I'm like right now I am doing some landscapes. I've got a show at Wyrick, a landscape show at Wyrick in August and September. It's going to be a 2-month show,
Nice.
along with the
Great gallery.
ceramicist. It's Two Visions of the Earth is what it's going to be called. So it's going to be, I'm doing landscapes, and Jen Noel is doing, she's a ceramicist, who's going to have her pottery there. So I'm working on the landscapes, and then I'm also going to have a show at Open Space Visitor Center in 2021 in the spring.
Oh, wonderful. I love that gallery. Oh,
It's I think it's one of the premier art spaces in the city of Albuquerque.
absolutely. It's just a gem. And their programming has been really quite exceptional, I believe. Yeah, I'm really happy to know that you're going to be in that gallery coming up. It's really, really fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a two-person show with Margot Geist. You know
Oh,
Margot?
nice.
Yeah. So Margot is a photographer, and a lot of our imagery, especially, we both are into circles and leaf-like shapes and layering images and kind of natural forms. So that's going to be, and we're going to do a workshop included with that show, which is going to combine meditation with creating an abstract painting
Oh,
or piece
nice.
of
That's
work.
fantastic.
So yeah, so
Really
we're going to
cool.
be
Yeah.
doing that. I guess the thing is what I'm seeing happening some. There's a. I'm still going in a lot of different directions. I'm seeing some of the landscapes start to move into my abstracts, and seeing the abstracts become more um, the um, the landscapes become more abstract. So it's sort of this thing is happening, which actually happened at the end of the 80s when I moved into abstraction. There was that overlay, and then they've gone separate for so long.
And now they're coming
And
back
now I
together
think I
again.
would really like to see them
Yeah.
re-merge into each
So
other
tell me
again.
about, you said you sort of hit a wall. I think that happens to every artist in the entire world.
Yeah.
And it's so good of you to sort of say, oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck right now. And what do you do with that? Do you simply just sort of spend time in the studio and don't pressure, or you just wait? Or do you look at art, or how do you?
I look at art. I've gone out taking photographs some. I force myself in here some. And right now I really want to, it's been, since I've been in Albuquerque, I've continued to do the landscape, but I haven't been in the landscape. And I
Right,
really want to
right.
do that. So this summer, my plan is I've contacted Peggy Trigg. I don't know if you know her,
Sure.
who lives
Yeah.
in Cuesta, and we're going to get together and go out painting. I'd like to go out with her because it's been 30 years since I've lived in Taos, and I want somebody to go with now. So, because
Yeah.
I don't know people's yards to go stand in anymore.
Right. Right.
So I want to do that. I want to, yeah, just go up and spend some time in Taos this summer. I also, yeah, it's just what I did yesterday. Ron Procrasso,
Picasso.
yeah, is doing a workshop over at Remark, print
Oh,
workshop,
really? Oh, that's fabulous. Ron's wonderful.
July 27th through the 31st. And I just signed up to take that because I've been a teacher for so long, Buffy, that I just feel like I need to be the student now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went ahead
Well,
and
and that's such a wonderful indication of your growth as an artist, because you're open to learn and continue learning. And you know, that that really is that speaks well of you as an artist, I think.
yeah, I need something fresh. I need
Yeah.
something. So going back up to Taos and retracing my steps a little bit will be
Nice.
just to get out in the air, the fresh air.
Nice.
But also the workshop with Ron will be great. Yeah, well, let me show you some around the studio.
Well, let me just tell while you're gonna. Oh, actually, let's do that first. So yeah, let's show around the studio. Yeah.
So let's take this stool over here. Let me see where I can put this. All right. So you were asking, what do I do? So I have this, I'm a little frozen. I came out the other day. Let me do this. Came out the other day, kind of late in the day on Thursday, and started a new landscape. And so here's like a very basic beginning of something. I don't know. Can you see it?
I can. And so, something, here's a question. You often work on a colored ground, perhaps a red ground often? Is
Mhm.
that correct? Yeah. So tell me about that. I think it might be fun for people to hear what that means and what it does um, in terms of just a painting technique.
Well, yeah, it gets rid of the white really quickly, but it creates depth too. So you don't have to worry about painting every little smidgen. I mean, let me take you over here.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice
so,
studio, by the way. Really, really pretty. Beautiful light.
so you see all the reds in here.
Yeah.
If you look really closely at some of the places, that red is showing through the blues and the purples and the greens.
Right.
So it creates depth to have an underpainting.
Well,
Sometimes
it works for you, I tell you what.
sometimes I use yellows, sometimes I use viridians, but most often red. This one is my newest piece.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Yeah, so that was fun. That one sold within 30 minutes of me posting it on
So
Facebook.
tell me about selling. So many artists really struggle with sales and in gallery representation. I know you've had many galleries through the years, and I'm delighted to hear that you're at Wyrick. But, um, I do you actually sell out of your studio occasionally?
I sell out of my studio a lot.
Good, good.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
Yeah, I
And on Facebook, is that how you're
Facebook is wonderful.
okay?
It's
Yeah,
wonderful for social media, Instagram. They're really wonderful venues for the artist. I mean, I think a lot of us do. I mean, Dee Sanchez is always on selling things. I noticed on Facebook.
I think it's not a new trend, but it's a trend that is important to artists
Yeah,
individually, who are trying to, well, I mean, look at the number of amazing paintings that are on your walls. You're very prolific. So,
well, I don't know. I am. I do seem to be prolific. Let me show you one of these in here. Let me see if I have. How do
oh,
you,
nice.
okay, so here's one up here. Let me see if I can get it up high enough.
So there's the combination of your abstract and your landscape.
Yes, that's
Oh, I
one
see
that's
it.
happened since the stay at home. So it'll be in the abstract show, even though it's got a lot of landscape to it, but I just think it goes more with that. This is one that'll be in the abstract show.
Very nice. And
Yeah.
then are you going to show any of the bowl series?
Oh, like,
Like this one right there. Oh, no, the other one right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, let me do this. Let me see if I can turn this on side.
Yeah, it worked. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so this
that's
is
such a
definitely
beautiful
for that
series.
show.
I'm very happy to see that.
Oh, yeah, it's got gold leaf. I've been doing a lot of metal leaf. One of the things that's been happening has been that, like a lot of times, this one will be in that show.
Great. Really.
Yeah, what's been happening is a lot of times the newer pieces sell before I get them to the shows. So I had another abstract I had finished earlier this spring that a woman that I walk with
Yeah.
would come in my studio and she would see it here. And so,
And
yay,
buy
she
it.
bought it. She bought it, but it's
I'll
like
take it.
a big abstract that I had been working on since last summer for the abstract show. A relative of mine came through town and bought it. So this
You're
landscape
doing
happening
okay in
for
terms
my
of sales.
Wyrick
I'm
show.
thrilled to hear that.
Oh, here's a new one. This is one of my favorites.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, let me see. I'm not. It's
No,
kind of
you're doing
hard to
great.
kind of hard to know what you're seeing.
No, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
You're doing
So I'm doing one of the things that I talked with Valerie at Wyrick about when I talked to her about doing the show was that I love to paint large, but there's a lot of people who can't afford my large paintings. So I'm doing a lot of these little baby jewels.
Yeah. I
So,
love the term jewels because, or
yeah,
gems or jewels. That's what we've always called them.
right.
It's almost like it's like the best thing to find that tiny little piece that's just exquisite.
Right.
Well, that's nice.
So I'm trying to show you this
So
one.
tell me what it's like to switch from teaching in public school to teaching adults, for instance, like at the Art League.
Well, I love it. I don't have to give people grades.
True, no grades. I know you must love
No calling parents to report bad behavior.
Right, right.
Um,
Even though there might be bad behavior
Even
sometimes.
though there might be bad behavior, but it's usually a little easier to deal with. So
Yeah.
it's not too bad. Most people.
I need you to come a little bit closer to your computer so we can hear you better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, so I want to tell everybody, I think we're sort of winding up. What do you think?
okay.
Yeah, does that feel right? Okay. I wanted to tell everybody that as well as these studio interviews, we've just put together a couple of classes online, and Alice has very kindly offered to do a class entitled Zoom into the Contemporary Landscape. Is that the title that we came up with? Okay, good. So that will be starting soon. Please check that out on our website, www.newmexicoartleague.org. And also Alice has 2 classes coming up in June. You know, fingers crossed that everything is going to work out and we'll be opening again in June with very, very careful social distancing and
Yes.
safety measures to keep everybody in a good place as we get through this really tricky time. Those classes, one is a teen class entitled Building a Portfolio for Teens, and the other one is called Contemporary Approach to Painting, where Alice will explore lots of different techniques that are really, really quite inspiring for people just getting into abstract painting. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Good. Good. Well, this has been so fun, Alice. You have a beautiful studio. I love your work. And I think you are prolific.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody says so. So I guess I have to admit that I am.
Fabulous. And I really love the fact that you're so true to your own vision and you just carry on. And the growth of your work is exceptional. And it's really a treat to see you in your element and in your place there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Aw, you're so dear. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Okay.